Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Radiant Others Klezmer Music Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Blacksburg, broadcasting from my West Philly basement. I'm here with another episode where I sit down with some of the movers and shakers of our global klezmer world and Yiddish community to talk about their work and how their work places them in both our Jewish world, our klezmer world, our Yiddish land, and the wider music world. Today on the podcast, I'm really excited to share with you my conversation with Susi Evans and Szilvia Czaranko. Susi and Szilvia, Susi plays clarinet and Szilvia plays accordion, are stalwarts of the UK and German klezmer scenes who joined together as a duo in 2019 after meeting earlier at Yiddish Summer Weimar. Their latest release is Von an alten Klezmer Heft, Beautiful Music from Old Manuscripts, a 44-track opus of tunes gleaned from their participation in the Klezmer Institute's Kisselgoff-Makonovetsky Digital Manuscript Project. We did a whole episode with some of the founders of the Klezmer Institute, and you can check that out in our feed, and we hope that you will and learn the really interesting story behind this manuscript project. So, in their participation with that, they went through, as you'll hear, tons and tons of new manuscripts, new klezmer tunes, and tried to find their own music inside of them. And they did. They pulled out a lot of tunes. They made this really cool duo recording that's available on their Bandcamp and in other places. And we talk about how we got into klezmer and how, especially for them, growing up with classical training, learning by ear was this new or revitalized experience that was really big for them. And then how funny it is that they spend their time going through these old manuscripts and trying to figure out how to make music out of notation, tunes that, for the most part, don't have any recordings that you can use as a reference point, and what it means and what you need to know and how all of our own experiences as people involved in teaching, playing, growing our klezmer community, how all of that comes together, and what are the challenges and complexities of dealing with all that. So it's really an interesting subject for me, and I hope it will be for you. And this episode is the first in an informal series that we're starting at this podcast about how different klezmer artists make fresh music from different archival sources. And we're going to be hearing from other artists who are working with different archives. There's a lot of really interesting work bringing the past into the present that's going on right now. Before we get into today's episode, I want to ask that you please support our work by signing up at patreon.com/radiantothers. That's patreon.com/radiantothers. And right now, we are able to keep putting out episodes once a month, and we're really grateful for all the people who have offered their financial support to help us do that. And I will say we're still a little bit under sustainability, even with that limited schedule. But what we'd really like to do is be able to produce a lot more episodes, interviews, and then dreaming of even other kinds of offerings, whether that's educational, other kinds of responding to current events, maybe record reviews or listening sessions or things like that. We just have a lot of ideas that, unfortunately, we're going to need a lot more support, either privately through you all or through some kind of larger foundational support to really get going. And we hope we can, because this means a lot to me, means a lot to my producer Bela, and I know it means a lot to all of you because you keep offering such incredible feedback from all the things you learn and all the things you get out of this podcast. So let's do it. You can also rate and review us on any of the podcast apps. I hear it helps. That's what all the other podcast hosts say, and it's probably true. So do that too. Before we start the episode, I have to offer an apology. There were some snafus with recording this episode, and we didn't get the very beginning of our conversation. So you're going to hear us jump right into pretty close to the beginning, but not the exact beginning of our conversation. But you know what? You won't even remember that another 5 minutes in. You'll just be in it. And so, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Susi Evans and Szilvia Czaranko.
mean, the first klezmer experience I had was at Klezfest in London 2001. And I think the pedagogy's changed a lot over time, because I didn't see a single piece of sheet music at that seminar, And I remember Merlin was teaching there, Merlin Shepherd, and he taught everything by singing and then playing. And I think I had some kind of recording machine with me, and I remember recording him and then going back home and practicing like how to do this thing on the clarinet, but for several years of workshops after that, I remember just doing everything by ear, singing and then playing. That was always everybody's pedagogy, and that worked.
But before that, have you done stuff by ear before that? I mean, we are both classically trained.
Right, so that was the first time I'd ever learned anything by ear. That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah. I was trained as a classical pianist. She studied clarinet at the Royal Academy. So I wasn't really used to play stuff by ear unless you sit with a guitar at the campfire and sing Blowing in the Wind and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then, I also remember that my first experience that was not the first time I played klezmer music, because I played it from sheet music I found somewhere in the internet, or the complete klezmer, of course, because everybody had it back then. But the first time I went to Yiddish Summer Weimar was 2008. There was the first other Europeans here. And Dan was there.
I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah, I was all of 24 years old at the time.
Yeah. So
Young guy.
That was my first contact with people playing klezmer music who really know what they're doing. And all the Lautari musicians, of course.
Yeah.
And they did give out sheet music also for the Lautari stuff, because that was just too hard to learn that by ear. But it was a lot going on by ear, and it was an amazing experience for me. I just never really did that before, but I tried and found out it works, and actually it is better. It feels better.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for the music. I don't know.
What was it like when Susi, when you finally got into situations where it was sheet music heavy? Did you just kind of ignore it, or was there sort of a learning curve?
I don't think I was ever in a situation like that learning klezmer music, actually, until I met Szilvia. And it turns out that you used a lot of sheet music in your workshops and for the klezmer orchestra, because that's a different project. That's like training an orchestra to perform a concert, and they have to learn 20 songs or something. So
but that might be a German thing.
It could also be that in Germany people rely heavily on sheet music compared to UK, where, I don't know, we've definitely noticed that between the UK, France and Germany,
and Switzerland,
there's people prefer to learn in different ways.
Oh yeah,
like in France, they don't like to read really. They really love learning by ear.
I wouldn't say that, but the people in France, it's my experience at klezmer workshops in France, they just accept that this is how it is. We learn this by ear. That doesn't mean that they feel super comfortable with it. That doesn't mean they're super good with it. But they just say, they just accept this is how it is. This is how you are supposed to do it. And then they are able to play together in jam sessions. And whereas in Germany, there's like this attitude of, we want sheet music, and if there isn't any, the people start complaining, and they like this demand this.
Wow, that sounds like America
and
a little bit.
Switzerland is worse than Germany. And
and the UK is somewhere in between, probably.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting that the first person that you mentioned, Susi, is Merlin Shepherd, because when I was started, Klez Camp 2002, he was there teaching, and he did everything by ear, right? And but before that, I had been learning out of some books,
because that was just what I had access to, and maybe like one CD. But then Pete Sokolow, who is like Mr. Klezmer, right? He's like the old head. He shows up with only sheet music. And it was so interesting because I think the idea was like, you're just supposed to get the style by like being in the culture or something like that. I know for me, whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to make sure that I want the people to, whatever it is, like keep going, right? So like, sounds like you were both pretty motivated once you got like once you had your first experience with this stuff to keep learning it, right? Or did you have people who kind of gave you like, you know, either validation or actual work that forced you or gave you more reason to learn more klezmer music or whatever?
I mean, I think like I kind of got the bug straight away. I think it was after the first time I was on stage playing klezmer. I was like, this is like we were on stage, we were up there having fun, sort of jumping about a bit, communicating with each other, and the audience were responding, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this is something you don't get, because all I'd known before that is playing classical music. So whether chamber music or in a symphony orchestra or with a solo pianist or something, I don't know. But the audience were like physically yelling out, you know, like, yeah, or like going up off their chairs, like around the Brunei Gallery. We were at SOAS. This was the first place that I played klezmer music, because the School of Oriental and African Studies is where these days the Jewish Music Institute is based in London. Mm-hmm. And that's where everything was going on around there in London at that time, and still is. So, but it was like, I never had that response, and it was so much energy, and also just not having to read the sheets and just play from your memory and from yourself, and that was like quite a big buzz for me. I mean, I never imagined the clarinet had that option. Like I've always kind of come from the fact I'm a clarinet player. That's my journey is like, I play clarinet, let's find a kind of music that I love to play. Mm-hmm. And that was it.
There you go.
Seems like.
How about you, Szilvia?
Well, I was trained as a classical piano player, and it took me a while to get rid of all of that. And one big help with that was when I bought an accordion.
Right.
So I bought an accordion, and I got interested in Eastern European traditional music because my family is from Hungary, and my parents are classical musicians, both cello players. My brother is a classical violin player, and I'm the black sheep of the family, a little bit. And I thought there must be more than classical music. We never listened to Hungarian folk music at home. It was always about Bach and Brahms and, you know. And I felt like I need to look into this, but I can't do it with piano. Mm-hmm. So I got an accordion. Actually, the first attempt was to learn clarinet, but then I had lessons with my friend back then. But after 2 weeks, he said, it's better if you start to learn the accordion and I pick up the clarinet again, because he was a saxophone player and he played clarinet as a kid. And then that was it. And we founded a band that went on for 20 years, klezmer and Balkan band. Achim, you met him too, Achim Rindel.
I'm sure I did.
So, and then we played Eastern European folk music, and of course I came across klezmer music. Then when I researched this, what music is out there and what I want to play, and then we ended up at Yiddish Summer Weimar, and we met, of course, Alan Byrne, and he really heavily influenced me. And
yeah,
like if he says things like the map is not the landscape, that is really a brilliant thing. like, I do like sheet music. I really like to, I think sheet music is important to have just for documentation, for remembering things, to passing it on to other people. But that doesn't mean that sheet music says everything you need to know about a certain style. So that also means you look at sheet music and you play it not exactly as written, of course, but how the style is supposed to be. And this is something I learned at Summer Weimar. And I figured this out pretty quickly. And I thought, wow, this is such a relief.
Yeah, right.
Compared to my classical education, where we're not supposed to change notes and stuff. This is like, okay, so this is the tune, this is a sheet of it, this is a transcription of it. But you can also do it in a different way, a little bit like jazz musicians are doing it. I mean, everybody knows how to deal with the real book of jazz.
Right.
Speaking of phrasing of eighth notes, like swing phrasing and stuff
Right.
like this. You need to know about it. If you don't know, if you're a classical musician, open the real book of jazz and play stuff. I think we all know how that sounds.
Yeah, we do.
So, and with traditional music, it's just the same. And not only with klezmer music. And then I had a deeper look into different other folk styles, and everywhere it's like this.
Yeah.
So each style has its own swing. And yes, you can write things down to memorize them, but that's not the whole story. So...
Right. I like to think of what can you get from the notation. So one of the things that I love looking at is a book like, the Kostakowski, which I bought at a Guitar Center as the Ultimate Klezmer, edited by Josh Horowitz. And what was cool about that was that it was just a transcription of 1912 wedding book. And so you see all of this, what information is there. So one of the things that's really common is that you get 4/16 notes, you get 2 slurred and 2 dotted. And it's like, you listen to that and you're like, what is that? Or you see what they kind of write in the crechts as like a double neighbor note on the thing. And nobody plays, very few people are playing da-di-da. They're playing all sorts of other things there. But it's like, wow, now I actually know where an ornament belongs because they kind of wrote it in. And I write my charts out. And then there's a book that I digitized from Susan Watts that was a Philly book that she got from Hankus Netsky, and it's very similar. It's written out very similar, and it's like, oh, there are specific notation conventions that these old guys used, right? And then you have like that book that Cookie Siegelstein did with somebody, I don't remember the name of this fiddle player, and where they kind of tried to transcribe everything really, really clearly, but it ends up being almost too complicated to read, and there's all these different notations in there, and you're sort of like, well, that's what you can get out of that, and that's what you can get out of this. And if you take it as useful information, it's like a really fruitful way to keep playing this music. Or I was just thinking about how I just did some work for a local Chabad's, and I was thinking about how much music they offer on their website, Chabad.org. They offer dozens of recordings for free, and also a lot of it has sheet music with it, and you can see how they write out their stuff. They're not faking it or trying to figure out. They're writing down what they feel is important to write down, and that's like, it's a really interesting thing because it's not everything, like you said, but it's what they felt was important, and that's really useful information for us to figure out what's important about playing this music. So your most recent album was over 40 pieces from the new KMDMP archive, and I was going to start with, how did you end up getting into that stuff in the first place? Was it a pandemic thing like everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pandemic thing. This is when Christina and the Klezmer Institute, when they launched this whole Kieselrauf Makonowiecki digital manuscript project, and they had this digitize-a-thons, like this full weekend, like I don't know, 72 hours non-stop Zoom meetings with different topics and different groups discussing different issues. It was amazing. It's really nice, and we joined that. And I was very excited about new material because at that moment we both have been playing klezmer music for a while, and we've been teaching klezmer music for a while, and we also made the klezmer playbook, like trying to find like 50 super good standard klezmer tunes. So let's say it was really difficult to show us a klezmer piece we haven't heard of yet. And that was just like 1,400 new klezmer tunes. We haven't, I mean, some of them have been recorded by. There was a nice thing when I've seen a Facebook discussion, and Ilya wrote something like, Ilya opened one of these hefts, they're called, the books, the handwritten books, and he said, oh, somebody must have played this tune to the Raven before Naftula Brandwein already. So, you find a few tunes we know from historical recordings made in the USA, or maybe a few Belf tunes, but it's just a few. The rest is unknown, new, old music. And it was really exciting playing through all this stuff and finding the tunes we like for a certain reason. Also, we were, of course, because we teach a lot, so we were also, of course, not only looking for tunes we love to play for ourselves, to perform them, like super fancy, artistic, I don't know what, but also to look for simple jam session tunes, simple ear tunes you can transmit to people. There's a lot in this, and that was really exciting, and it was amazing that we had time to do that back then in the pandemic. Sometimes I do miss the pandemic. I really miss these times when you just had time, You're sitting at home, it was cozy, have your best friend with you, and you don't have to travel anywhere. Everybody's sitting at home, nothing is happening, you also don't miss anything. Sometimes I do miss that these days.
I found it was very nice to not have to hustle for a little while. Yeah. What was it like digging into this stuff for you, Susi, especially because you were saying, I mean, at this point, I'm sure you've done it all from learning from recording, so it's not like, oh my God, sheet music. But it is funny that it's completely different than the way I ended up. I mean, I know for me, I transitioned to only by ear, and I'm sort of back there now for myself. But then there's all this stuff that's like, there's no by ear with this stuff. You have to do. There's by something else, which I want to get to talking about. Like, but what was it like diving into this stuff? 1,400 tunes. That's crazy, right?
And a lot of the melodies, I mean, it is simply written. Let's say, like, there's not a ton of information there. It's just a melody, and the melody is. It's not written with a lot of ornamentation written in. It's basically the melody. It's really like the map. Yeah, it's like, this is how you get from A to B. It's not a clever way of getting from A to B, or it's just like, this is the melody, and there's sometimes the odd grace note or crachs written there, but then it's repeated. There's not, the repeats aren't written out or something, because we know from studying this music that performers like to vary the theme on the repeat. It's like, that's part of the style. So it's interesting just to see that a melody is just written on 3 lines, the whole thing, and then the next melody on the same piece of paper, and there's no chord symbols, there's no instruction really how the rhythm should be, not even a title. Sometimes it says Scotchna, which is some kind of uncertain.
I'm pretty sure you talked with Christina about what is a Scotchna.
Well, that's right. It's like information. This is like what I was thinking is, well, you're not playing these things. You can't play these things by ear, but you actually, as we know, you have to add so much knowledge and information on top of these things. And you're saying there's maybe even less than in some of the other fake books or the wedding books that we have access to, that it's like, I mean, and there's no rule book. There's no klezmer. I mean, there's the Klezmer Institute, but there's no Klezmer Foundation that has the real way it's done. There's not even historical informants that you could say, how did your grandfather play this? Right? We don't really have access to that either. And so it's like, I was going to say, I know for me, I try to keep track of where I'm getting my information that I make decisions of these kinds off of. But like, yeah, where are some of the places that you get these decisions for rhythm, chords, articulation, even tempo, right? I mean, yeah, what are your experiences or your knowledge that you found that you had to like really bring to this stuff in order to even think about performing it or playing it, right? Like,
well, I've always sort of said, the melodies speak for themselves. Like, you don't have to put a lot into a melody if it's a good melody. And it was interesting because we played through a lot of these tunes, and sometimes it was like, okay, that's really weird, that one. Like, maybe we should put that aside, come back to it later. Like, are we even sure that that's right? Like, is that the right note? Or is that being sort of written in the stave in the wrong place? Was that a mistake? Or so some of them sounded odd and we kind of had to come back to them later. But some of them, like, immediately were like, oh, this is great. Sounds a little bit like this melody that we already know, but it's kind of... But I suppose if you've been playing this music long enough, then you're like, you recognize things and you're like, okay, this is how I would play that melody I know. So let's play it like this in a similar way. And
we also had some disagreements on what is a good tune and what's not. Oh, and by the way, just for the record, we didn't play all 1,400. I think it's also less than 1,400, 1,300 something. We didn't play all of them, but let's say 600 to 700 we did play.
That's
at
well
least
more
I
than
did.
I have, yeah.
So and then you just sort out yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe, and then you go through the maybes and the yeses again, and then you still have 200 you like, and you want to do one CD, and an audio CD has like 70, how many minutes?
Yeah, 70.
Yeah, so it is a problem. And sometimes I came up with a new selection of, hey, Susi, I found some tunes. And then we played them together and tried to make them sound. And she was like, really? This one? I'm like, yeah, just look at it. It has like this and that. And
yeah, and to convince me, like, we decided in the end to record ourselves playing the tunes.
Oh yeah, that was a brilliant idea.
Because when you're sitting there reading it and playing tune after tune, you don't have a sense of how does this sound. Like, after a while, you're lost in this material. So we recorded ourselves. We went to the kitchen.
And this is something we can recommend. Listen from the loo.
Listen from the toilet. Everything sounds good from far away.
Yeah, so we recorded ourselves just jamming through a bunch of tunes, and then we put on the recording in the kitchen and did cooking, got to the bathroom, and if you listen to it from the distance and you think, wow, that's a good tune, that sometimes it's surprising. It's not the one you would have picked.
And a good clue is when you find yourself singing it afterwards.
Yeah.
And you can't get it out of your head. And you thought,
I agree.
I didn't like that tune when I played it, but now I can't stop singing it. It must be, there must be something there,
There were quite a few surprises where we thought, so it's not a good one, but then it turned out it is a good one. And other way around. It's really interesting.
And I suppose our goal for this process of like, hey, let's record a CD, it wasn't to release like a CD with amazing arrangements or something like this. It was more like, let's record this stuff more like a library, like so that people in our community who we know because they've already interested in the klezmer playbook, and we know that there are people there who want to learn more tunes. We're like, then if we record this, then they will be inspired to learn these tunes too. That was one of our main motivations for this. So it didn't really have to be a tune that you might think of releasing, you know, on a big an album with, like, one of my other bands, maybe Sequoia, like a 7-piece band. We've been going 20 years and we just want to find like something that sounds great with a 7-piece band.
And also doing a super amazing artistic arrangement. It's just recorded tunes. We think like all the tunes we picked are our babies. There are far more who didn't make it on this. It was meant to be one CD. Then we had to do 2 CDs because it was impossible to narrow it down to 1 CD. But then we stopped after 2. And both audio CDs are just full, right?
It's 44 tracks altogether.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was listening through it this morning, and it is, you know, it's great because I actually was thinking every time I play a klezmer gig and someone asks me, where is this recorded? I'm like, this isn't. You know, there's this way in which people have made a lot of artistic music and beautiful stuff. There's like, there's not a lot of meat and potatoes klezmer recordings out there that are of high fidelity, let's say, right? You know, it's like
potatoes.
Yeah, that's our phrase of just like salt of the earth. You know, it's like nothing fancy, just for, you know, a Wednesday night dinner, not even a Friday night dinner. And it's like,
you know, it's just the tunes. These tunes are wonderful. These tunes are great. Even the simple ones, they deserve it to be recorded. It's just to pass it on to other people who prefer to listen to it rather than to read a handwritten manuscript.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting that, you know, there's always translation in that, right? Because you're going to add yourselves into that. And honestly, there's nothing about an ethnographic manuscript transcription that is more privileged than your version of it or my version of it. It's like, it's supposed to be our version of it, but we try our best to make sure that our versions are also like, I don't know, for me, as Jewish as possible, I guess I would say. I always want this to be an expression of something that is myself and something a little bit greater than myself in terms of what I know about this style, especially because with our music, it's not living somewhere outside of us. You know, there's not klezmer homeland where you can go and play and klezmer music is just happening all the time. It's like, it's us. It's the people who are doing it that make it real. Otherwise it would go away. It could have gone away. You know, it didn't, thankfully, but it could have. And so, you know, and this same with this stuff, right? This music that's been in an archive, and if people want the story of how it got out, we got a good episode with Christina Crowder and Clara where they tell the story, which is kind of remarkable. And then you have all these people like Zev Feldman or Michael Alpert and Josh Horowitz or Alan who have spent their lives and their careers trying to really build a communal understanding of this music in some way so that you can get this pile of, you know, lightly notated music and then turn it into something. You know, we all have, it's, you know, I hear you both drawing on so much information, even in the titles. You know, you're like, okay, we're going to play this. This is one of these, so we're going to play it this way. And a lot of times, like you said, it's because it sounds a little bit like another kind of tune that you already play. But it's kind of remarkable to me how much knowledge you have to bring to the table just to get a CD like this going.
I mean, I must say it would have been impossible without all the work we've done in our lives so far. And with work, I mean...
other people's work who've taught us.
No, I mean, yeah,
people.
People who taught us, but also, as you like to say, Naftul Brandwein is your greatest teacher you can ever have. So, like, listening to the recordings we do have, the oldest possible recordings we do have, and try to learn and understand this style as good as possible by listening and trying to play it based on, how would Brandwein have played this? How would Taraf have played this? Or all Abe Schwartz, Leibowitz, I don't know, Tsiganov. Like, this is super important, and this is a process we have gone through before we got in touch with these manuscripts. So this is all our knowledge we had when we looked at these manuscripts and tried to make them sound like hopefully what the people back then have intended to. I don't know. But we did our best. Yeah.
Yeah. At least something they would have loved to listen to.
So everything we know and we learned about this style of music, including the different tempos, the different dance rhythms, the phrasings, the ornaments, the ways of harmonizing it. Although, I mean, in these manuscripts, there are no hints of arrangements. There are no chord symbols, nothing. Just a melody, like in Bergovsky. But I am always very aware of what am I doing with the chords I put to something. Do I follow the more old school traditional way, or do I walk more on the Romanian Moldavian path or something? Oh, and also our knowledge about other European folk music styles was also very helpful, because some of these melodies, when you just play the melody, you think like, this can't be from Ukraine. This sounds so Scandinavian or so I don't know what. And then in a few tunes on this CD, we also used other ways of harmonizing it just to make it sound like something different.
I was going to say something like a polka, something from Bavaria. There's something, because you've got a great knowledge, having played in the Gläser Wein, where you played some Alpen music.
Yeah, but I also
well.
studied with Bavarian folk musicians.
Yeah, and you come across a melody and you're like, this sounds like a Bavarian polka, and then you just harmonize it that way, and you know, you have to start with the third, and then you get the seventh, and then you get this kind of crazy tritone interval that's actually like sounds like you're in thirds, but it is kind of, you don't get that in klezmer music,
right?
But your knowledge of that style, you can import it into that tune.
But some other tunes sounded like we did use chords you would have never used in traditional klezmer context. That we used harmonization that is more like typical for, I don't know, how do you call it? Like I hear that a lot in bar folk music, like the Hopscotchner, for example. Or so that was also interesting, having these melodies, just bare melodies, and you can make them sound like anything you want. I mean, the melodies tell you how they want to sound like, right? But there were a few melodies who told me, I have this impression, try something different, try something out of the box. And then it still sounds folky, but not Jewish Eastern European folky. So we took that freedom on this CD as well, to put some of these melodies in a new context, just for fun. No,
well, because it was what we decided to do with it.
Yeah.
But everybody has the freedom to do their thing with it too. And with every book we published and every CD, it's like, here is where you can find the original manuscripts. Go and find the manuscripts for yourselves, and and learn more tunes and make your own CDs, and So we're just sort of always pointing people where to go. This is where you can find this amazing stuff.
And what's great about like all the things you're saying is, and like I said, this is absolutely on my mind right now, is what I want to point people to is how global. The more you know, the more you're equipped to make these specific decisions, right? It's almost like this idea that you just, it's like you play the melody and the melody tells you what it needs. Okay, in order to be available to respond to that, you need to have a good knowledge of all this Jewish stuff. You need to have a good knowledge of all these recordings. It helps to have played through something like Baragovsky, where you've already dealt with music that was written out like this without chords. It helps to have knowledge about other Eastern European or just European styles like a polka or polka mazurka. And it's, where I'm coming from, a lot of people don't have a lot of that kind of global position. And it's like the people who I love to play with the most are the people who do, or there's a few of them who just sort of manage to, it just comes out of them anyway, and you're like, I don't know how this works, but go ahead. And but yeah, it's just the amount of overall information that we bring to the table for any one of these tunes is actually quite immense. And it's one of the things, especially for me right now, where I have a lot less time, it makes me really notice how much work it is to be a good musician. I mean, that's sort of what it comes down to, right? It just takes an unbelievable amount of work and dedication to get to this place where you can make good music, right? I wanted to think about like the Jewish aspect of this. Somehow I was thinking about, because I'd say your album is sort of almost 50-50, what we could say like cosmopolitan styles, like a polka or a waltz or something like that, versus things like a Freilochs or a, I mean, it's I don't know 50-50, but it's a lot of of these sort of like, not a Freilochs, not a Bulgar, not a Scotchno, whatever. But, is there something for you Jewish about those other tunes that was in there? Is it just like, oh, these are just great tunes that was from this Jewish archive? Like, I was just wondering where Jewishness or the either as a sonic quality or some other kind of thing shows up for you in this music. And we can talk about it more generally in your lives or your music also if you want, but like for this project.
How shall I say? It is remarkable the amount of tunes that are not Jewish core dance repertoire in these manuscripts. So it's not just a few waltzes and a few polkas, it's like a lot. It's a lot of tunes you wouldn't expect to be in a collection like this. That means Jewish musicians back then did play all of this music. This was their repertoire. And not just occasionally one or two waltzes, that was a big part of their repertoire. So,
although I have a theory that the reason they wrote down so many of these tunes was because it wasn't in their repertoire. If you think about it, how many tunes of the ones you play at a Jewish wedding today have you actually written down for yourself? Like, you just write the ones down that you don't remember. Like, that's what I would do. If I was like playing at a Jewish wedding with my band, I'd be like, okay, guys, we've got to play this tune tonight. I've written it down for you, okay? Then let's play it. Rather than like 300 tunes that we all usually play, So I just wonder if like the balance is a bit skewed because, you write it down in order to remember the tune.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It is possible.
On the other
we
hand,
don't know.
On the other hand, these guys like Kisselgoff, he wanted to collect everything, right? So he was.
I'm pretty sure they asked them about the usual stuff they do play.
And he was writing stuff down. He was asking people to play, and then he was writing it down himself. And Machnevetsky was doing that too, I guess. So, and Baragovsky too. So, I mean, they were tunes that they were being played. But then on the other hand, like Motul Reda, this violinist from Dubno, who was 70 years old when they came to his village in 1913. So, and he just gave them his notebook. So, these were tunes. they also great. The Motorrad book is my favorite, I think.
Yeah, he had a very good taste, Motorrad. Oh, and by the way, Motorrad also wrote in quite a lot of ornaments and slurs and staccato dots and expression markings.
That's some really useful stuff.
His book has got a lot of major tunes, like tunes in major keys, which is so, it's fairly unusual.
And also a lot of Romanian, Moldavian, Bessarabian related stuff, which is quite far away for somebody who lives in northwest Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Geographically. I don't know. He had an excellent taste, Motorrad. We love him. And then his book is about, I don't know how many tunes are in his book.
I don't know, but
100 or maybe. They're all good. You could just record all of the Motorrad tunes and it would be an excellent collection of CDs. They're all good.
But if you want to answer Dan's question more specifically, whenever I think of a Jewish tune, I think of something really like a chosidul. If you find a good chosidul, you're like, this is really core repertoire here. And how many chosiduls are in?
Actually, not so many.
In Motorrad's book, maybe
not so many.
Because we did find a few, really nice chosiduls that we recorded.
Yeah. But you do find far more freilachs than chosiduls. Really slow, really Jewish tunes is not so much in this collection. In the entire collection, not.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so interesting because it's here we are. People like to think people draw all sorts of experiences out of when they hear us to go back to what you're saying about that first concert, Susie, about this. People start moving and they're like, "This is our music" or this thing, and it's at this point in my life, I just know it's not real. It's imaginary. I don't think it's less important or less real in terms of what it means to you. But this, the more I learn about the history, the more it's oh man, maybe they played more polkas and waltzes than they played freilachs. And that's funny because now I'm the opposite, except in October when I play with my friend's polka band and then it switches just for 1 month. But I was thinking about this idea of any sense of common ground, right? This is the common ground that sonic perceptions, a rhythmic approach or a set of approaches. I know for me, and I think it sounds like for you, it's a little bit well, everything we know about klezmer and Jewish music, plus everything we know about other kinds of related Eastern European music, plus everything we know about music comes out to an ability to play klezmer music, right? But trying to figure out this common ground, you say you teach a lot, I teach a lot, always trying to figure out how to get people to play this music in a way that I want to hear it, at every level of technique, not, the virtuosity version, the people who could play in slightly out of tune, can't play slightly totally in tune. It should all be available, and we're still working on that. But you mentioned this klezmer playbook that you had made. That sounds like some of your attempts to try to, construct some kind of common space, common repertoire for people to approach this. Yeah, you want to share more about that?
So the idea of the klezmer playbook in the beginning was we wanted to create a book we could take to workshops with us instead of all these flying sheets of paper everywhere.
Oh, good for you.
What tune should we teach today?
You have to face the reality, at least in Germany, that when you teach a klezmer workshop, people expect sheet music.
Yeah.
And people also expect, because since for klezmer workshops, all sorts of instruments are allowed to sign up. You can have recorders and bassoons and French horns and I don't know what, nickel harpers, all sorts of instruments. They also expect music for transposing instruments in their key. And every time you don't provide that, and every time your sheets have mistakes, it just causes you lose time during the workshop, and it gets really annoying. So the best is you prepare the music, the sheet music, as good as possible for everybody with the different needs. That just saves time. This is my personal experience. And I was a little bit tired of that, picking the tunes in advance before I met the group, and I'm able to, I see what they're able to do. So the idea was, why don't we have like something like a book, and we travel around with this book, and then we see what kind of group we have, and we have this group in concert C, and B flat, and E flat, in viola, and in bass clef, and I don't know. And then you just meet the group and tell them, okay, you know what? Open page 27 in the book, and this is the tune we're going to play. So you don't have to make these decisions in advance before you met them, what they're able to do. And to have like a collection of, in this case, it's like 50 klezmer tunes that are common, played everywhere, good jam session tunes, and every single tune is in this book for a good reason, because you can show one aspect of klezmer music with each one of these melodies. So just to avoid doing this photocopies bullshit, just to have, that was my dream. Okay, we have this book, and we take a box of books, and we travel to a workshop, and we hand out the books, and then we play from these books, and we don't have to do photocopies. And
it's available for 6 different
That's great.
transposition instruments. So like, B flat, E flat, viola. So you end up carrying like 60 books.
So that was I mean, that was the idea of it, like having 50 tunes to pick from. Which tune is now the right one for this group in this situation with their ability, which is also a bit difficult to prepare. I don't know. Have you done that before? Like preparing a workshop in advance, but you don't know what the people
like
are
every
able
time.
to do,
Come on.
actually. So, yeah. So I really like to have something to pick from, and then I decide
great.
on the spot. Okay, let's do this one. But if you hand out sheet music, I've also experienced that myself as a participant, that you get sheet music that has mistakes or questionable way of transcribing things that causes so much time to this. So it better be good. Yeah. So it needs to be really good. That was also one of my things, like, if you give out sheet music, it needs to be really precise.
But this is called the klezmer playbook, and that means it's got play-alongs.
Yeah.
So that was one of our things, like, okay, let's do the sheet music, but what we really want people to do is practice, with the recording. So we recorded it in slow tempo and faster tempo.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's us playing it. It's not, it's not like practicing with Naftali Brandwein or Dave Taras, but underneath every title in the book, there's like, here's where you find the historical recording as well.
Yeah.
So people have got all the information about the historical recording. They can also practice with the recording that's in pitch, because, a lot of these historical recordings is quite difficult to play along with.
That's true.
So this also helps people's musicianship skills, like intonation, like playing in time, like it's also helpful for, not just like learning klezmer music, but learning everything about playing. Like you can choose to learn it by ear as well. You don't have to read the sheet, so you can improve like your general skills as well.
And this is a compilation of 50 standard klezmer tunes that we think they're tunes that are being played everywhere, based on our experience of meeting other people from other countries, and like something. It's organized by something like 10 Gossedels, 10 Freilachs, 10 Bogars, 10 Jocks, and then a couple of other things like
Hungers, Turkish,
Hungers, Patstans, Dobry den, sei gesund, stuff like this. And with this, you can.
Yeah.
These tunes are being played. It's just a good way to start. And what we did is we listened to all the historical sources we could find. Some tunes have like 8, 9 different recordings, some of these tunes, recorded by different bands, mostly American, but also European sources. And we listened to all of them, and we did transcribe these tunes based on what we heard, and we discussed everything. Because the problem is with sheet music, you write down, the people play what they see. So if you write it down in a very, very simplified way, they're going to play it like this. And based on my experience with the Klezmer Orchestra Erfurt, I know very well how this is going to sound. And some of these tunes, I just couldn't. It would break my heart to hear them played like this. So we decided to put in some ornaments, some variations, a little bit, very few articulation marks, but not too much to make it look too scary. And that was the most difficult process of the whole thing. And thanks God there was the pandemic, we had time to do this. We were actually fighting on a few of these tunes. Like how to transcribe this, how to do this grace note, how to do that dotted 16th note, or like...
It's a good question.
How simple and how complicated. That's the most important thing about it. If you write something down, people are going to play it.
Oh, yeah.
Like this. How complicated do you want to write it down? But it shouldn't be too complicated so they are totally scared.
In a way, it's quite depressing.
Yeah, because you have to confine everything.
I have to say.
She always fell asleep.
It's true, I did. Because you don't really want to have to do this work. Like, this is not how the music should be. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There was a participant at Klezfest this year. He was from a classical background. He was a professional clarinet player. And I was teaching a melody by ear, and he was writing it down with like 16th notes, and then.
But he was also autistic. You have to say.
Oh
that.
Yeah, okay. He was
a well-trained classical clarinet player.
He was taking everything.
Autistic.
He was taking everything very literally.
Super accurate with everything.
If you take everything very literally, then he was writing it down like semiquavers, hemi, demi, semiquavers, like dotted hemi, demi, semiquavers,
triplets,
and then like. Rests before the end of the bar, like to emphasize that there's a tiny gap there before the downbeat comes, and like he was taking this so literally and writing it down like this, and then he showed me and he was like, so this is this something like how it looked like when they wrote it down?
Yeah, no.
And I was like, hey mate, it's the other way around. Like nobody wrote this down. Like until today.
Wouldn't it be great to have that to show people and be like, oh, if you want to learn it exactly, here you go, try this, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's the point of this is that there's no point in writing it down because it's too complicated. It's too and because you're not supposed to repeat it that way anyway, right? But that's what a fun way. I would love to have somebody transcribe like at a nearly like unreadable level some of this stuff. And I had a student who learned I assigned them what was it, Oitatis is Git, right, like the Naftali tune, and they learned it note for note to the point that I was like, oh, we like missed the forest for the trees, but it was too accurate. It was really intense because they didn't have a sense of the hierarchy of what was important between all this like filigree, all these complicated patterns, all these different techniques. But on the other hand, they're a creative musician, and they brought some of that stuff into their own playing and went off with it in their own direction. So there's like the side of it where you're trying to actually get people to play some freaking klezmer music, and then there's the side of it where it's like people are going to be people, and they're just going to take it the way that they're going to do what they're going to do with it. And it's hard because I want people to play some freaking klezmer music, and there's actually not that many people who really decide, who get the bug the way that any of us did.
But I mean, Naftali Brandwein, he wasn't memorizing all the variations every time he played the tunes, He just played from his toolbox of, I can do this and a cracks here and speed it up a bit here and then, reduce it here. And, everything he's doing, you can Like you can like analyze everything and like put it in that way, but that's not his process.
No, I don't think so.
You know that for sure, but that's the problem with making an academic transcription or something. If you really do want to like know exactly what you're doing, and then on repeat you do that, and then on repeat you do that, but then you have to memorize the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how it works. Like this is not
Right. And then what are you going to do? Play at the same time every way for dancers? No, you're not going to do that.
right.
This is like the transcription of the Taraf piece.
Oh yeah, okay. Like last week we were playing with these classical musicians on this.
So what they had is somebody made a quite accurate transcription for string quintet of the Taraf the Hajduk piece Tucierska.
Okay.
Do you know that?
Not by name, but I probably heard it before.
I think it's
Shall we sing the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
Like the one with the amazing bass solo in it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
It's a super fast Roma music piece.
Right.
So somebody sat down, went through the effort, and made a super accurate transcription for string quartet and double bass of this, with all the ornaments written out, everything, absolutely everything. It's like the full score is like
they even
30
transcribed
pages or something.
they transcribed the cymbalum solo for the first violin player.
Wow.
So, and these classical musicians we worked with, they tried to play that because they played what's in their score.
Oh, yeah.
And we and the Hungarian cymbalum player were just like, oh God.
So we listened to the recording. We were like, okay, we've got to play this piece next week. What are we going to do? Let's listen to the recording and learn it from the recording.
Yeah.
right? And then the classical players, they're like with their heads in the sheet music, trying to like play
They
this
played
stuff.
note by note. They didn't understand the structure of a tune, that this is an ostinato backing for a soloist, and this is like
Right.
like
You can leave out the pedal tones because they're just pedal tones. Like this is how it swings, or that, or even that letter J is the same as letter M.
Yeah.
It's just written out a bit differently.
So I think that leads us back to the fact that you always need to know about the context you're working at.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Like what does this mean? Like sheet music is not, the map is not the landscape. You can look at what's written in your score, but that's not the whole story. You need to know what's the context, what's the style, what's this supposed to be? Like,
Yeah.
what kind of tune is this? What kind of musical culture? I think this is really super interesting and relevant, and you can't avoid learning stuff by ear, and then sheet music makes sense to you.
Yeah.
But just learning a traditional music style from sheet music, not only klezmer music, any other traditional style, just from sheet music, learning it is
But that's one of my favorite
not a good idea.
things
It won't
about
work.
about playing klezmer is like that. You can know a tune for 20 years. Like, let's say the first klezmer tune I ever learned was, Golden Achasana or something, like, da-da-ba-ba-ba-da-da-da-ba, which is a great Taras recording. And, like, I played that tune so many times. I don't know how many. Like, we used to play it on the streets with Shikoya back in, London, like, every weekend we were busking, and we'd be like, hey, let's play this one, because everyone always gives us money when we play this one. And then, so it'd be like literally a few times a week we'd be performing that tune. I don't know how many times I played it. But if you're learning klezmer in the way that, like, you're thinking about, how would Brownviner play this? How would Taras have played this? Like, sometimes he would do this, sometimes he would do this. Oh, I know, I'm going to just, like, reduce it here, or add a few notes here, or speed up a bit there, slow down a bit there. Like, oh, now I feel like doing cracks here, or maybe I'm not going to play the melody, I'm just going to play a bit of a second line here, or, so, like, constantly kind of improvising your way through, then you never get bored, right?
No.
The moment you get bored of playing a tune, you're not in the tune anymore. You might as well just stop. Right? If you're bored of playing a tune, then it's not klezmer anymore.
I think it's not, you've lost that sense of the connection between yourself and something bigger than yourself. That sense of this being part of a culture or a tradition or even a community of people, which is now goes well beyond the boundaries of the Jewish community that birthed it, and also the geographic locations where it started, and that's what's so cool about the place that our music has found itself. And I think that, I'm always trying to like shore up, the web, the lines between all these different elements, like you've said, and give people, and I hope that this conversation gives people a sense of what the work is, of what it takes to have a really strong sense of how to get from A to B and have it mean something as opposed to just following somebody else's directions, right? And I guess one of maybe a sort of wrap up question is like, what are some things that you want to see more of, or that you're really excited about, that are sort of just starting or even ongoing in this community of ours right now, either for yourselves or for like the broader community?
So I got into this community. I consider myself a member of the Jewish, the klezmer community. Sorry, but no, actually, this is interesting because somebody asked me the other day, "Are you in the Jewish community?" And I said, "No, I'm not in the Jewish community. I'm in the klezmer community." But I don't know whether that's relevant or not here. But what I mean is, like, we all met around the same time. Like, there was this kind of wave of, like, people my age, your age, our age, like, who were like, "Hey, this music, have you heard this music? Like, hey, people, come, listen. We're going to play it on the street now. Listen, come and listen to this. Have you heard this music?" And then people would come, they'd be like, "What music are you playing?" And we'd be like, "This is klezmer." And they'd be like, "Oh, wow, love this music." And then we'd keep going and play some more. And then a few years later, the questions would change. Instead of saying, "What music are you playing?" people would come and say, "What kind of klezmer music is this?" Or "What is this Jewish music from Eastern Europe?" Or "What is this Balkan music?" Or is this what, like, their questions would be more informed. So, like, what's happened is that we've all somehow met and started playing this music, and then brought in like a bunch of other people with us, like saying, "Hey, have you, and so it's kind of made this bigger community, greater than, I don't know, its parts, or I don't know where it's, what I'm trying to say here. But what I would like to see is another wave. Like, there's not many people who are in their 20s like I was back then, asking these questions, like, and saying, and getting really, really excited about something like this music that is like they never heard it or something. Because back then was a different world, right? It was without internet. Everything we had access to, we had to really work hard to get hold of, like these cassette tapes from Kurt in Chicago. We were like, "Can you please send me one in the post?" Or, and like just finding, like, people would give you a cassette tape and say, "Hey, listen to this. It's got the Klezmatics on it. It's got Brave Old World on it. It's also got like Selim Sesla and all Bulgarian, like Ivo Paposov and stuff like this on it." And like you'd just be like excited to hear about anything, from that was on a cassette that you'd never heard before. But these days, if you're in your 20s, you just go online, write in something, you can hear it. I mean, that's great for all of us. Like, the access to music is just like overwhelming,
right?
And great, but to have that buzz of excitement, like you feel like you've discovered something. Like, I don't know if that happens anymore, So it would be nice. I don't know what we can do. I mean, there are people who are really heavily invested in like trying to get young people on board to to play music like this. Like Ilana Kravitz, she's running like a youth orchestra, klezmer youth orchestra, and you know, Yiddish Summer Weimar has a children's program. I'm sure they have that Yiddish New York as well. But you know, it's like that would be something for the future.
Yeah.
Like, that is the future, right?
Yeah.
As long as people want to play this music, it survives. Yeah.
We do our best. Szilvia, what do you got?
What I've got, like this term of historically informed performance practice, for a very long time I thought that has nothing to do with me, but actually it does, because I think traditional music from any region I have high respect for it, and it's so precious and valuable. And Eastern European Jewish music is something I really got into it, and it kind of found me rather than I found it. I don't know. But also other traditional styles. I think it's really important to keep this music alive for future generations. And then the question for us as educators is, how do you do this? How do you transmit the information? And we always do our best to find a balance between, yes, we have published sheet music books, but we also try very hard to convince people that you do need a live experience and a workshop and a teacher to explain to you what all of this really means. And this is what we also do a lot. And well, thanks to the pandemic, that also may I go on this path a little bit?
Sure.
Because the Klezmer Playbook, as we pictured earlier, the idea was, let's have a book we can take to workshops, and we don't have to do photocopies. We just have this book. Yeah, and then when we were finished with the book, the pandemic was there, and there were no workshops. There were no live workshops. So we advertised this book on Facebook and through various mailing lists, and then people from 17 different countries purchased this book. At least we shipped it to so many countries. That was really also interesting, having this business of shipping stuff, and not what you signed up for as a musician usually. And then the second lockdown came in, and it looked like it's not gonna get better any soon. And then we wrote to all the people who bought this Klezmer Playbook from us, like, hey, what do you think? Would you like to join some Zoom workshops with us where we explain to you how to play these tunes in klezmer style? And then this is where we founded the Klezmer Playbook Club, basically. And it's an international community from people from, 13 different countries. And we do regular online workshops where every time we pick 2 tunes from the book, and we explain and practice certain aspects of these tunes in the book, and we listen to historical recordings, and we do some exercises on ornaments and what else do we do. So this community is still going. After the pandemic, we still have 30, 40 Zoom members every time we do it. Still, that's quite amazing, and it's really nice to see. Many of these people we have met in real life by now, in real-time workshops and festivals, but it is really nice to have this community going and to know that all these people like what we're doing, and our mission is kind of passing this music on to people who are interested, but not just the sheet music, but also the context, the historical context, the stylistic context, like everything that comes around it, and the playing by ear stuff. Just, it's easy to buy a book, a sheet music book, and play what you see, and you think, yeah, I can do this. No, it's not. It's just a tiny little bit of the whole thing, and this is what we try to provide in regular Zoom workshops to it. And obviously it is popular. That's really nice. We're really happy about this. This is such a nice community around the Klezmer Playbook Club.
That's so great. So we've got Klezmer Playbook, we've got Von an alten Klezmer Heft, and more recordings than that I know that you've made. And so they can find you on Bandcamp. They can find you very easily on the internet. And I think that's probably a really lovely spot to wrap up, if that's cool with you all. And so, Szilvia and Susi, thank you so much for having a conversation with me. It was lovely to talk to you, and I hope we get to play some of this stuff soon.
That was my conversation with clarinetist Susi Evans and accordionist Szilvia Csaranko. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed getting to hear more about their development and their entrance to this whole big klezmer world, and how they've built a really, really interesting and beautiful community through their work, and how they got to this cool place that they are now, working with all this different music and providing a lot of cool resources to a lot of music people all over the world. Once again, we hope this is a really wonderful resource, this podcast, for you all, and that you're able to get a lot, feel inspired, and feel like you're in on the hang. I've always said that the reason why I started this podcast was so that I could share the exciting experience that got me really invested in playing klezmer music and being part of this world of hanging out with these really cool artists who are making really awesome stuff happen. And usually that happened late at night at Klez Camp or late after the gig over some meal or something like that. And we can't always be in those places. So we bring these conversations to you so that you can kind of sit down with us and get inspired. Once again, please send us a message. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. You can find us through any of the podcast apps, and you can find us at Patreon at patreon/RadiantOthers, patreon.com/RadiantOthers. With that, I'll leave you all, and we'll have another episode for you coming in next month. In the meantime, be well, everyone, and good Shabbos. Thank you.